Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out the Walkera Rodeo 110. Now Walkera are known for making some top-notch products. I know a lot of people have got the Rodeo 150 and that's a very popular model. In fact, it's probably one of the most requested reviews that I get on the channel, and if one comes my way I will definitely be checking it out. But today this one has come my way from gearbest.com and it's a really neat micro brushless quadcopter. Now, why might you want to go this small? I know a lot of people are worried about the 250 gram regulation in America. Now this one weighs 100 grams and then with the included battery that you get it's 150 grams, so you are definitely under that 250 gram weight. Now, as for specifications, sadly there's not a lot of information about this one. It seems Walkera have kept that away from us, maybe to stop us using external components. But these motors here, they look like the 1102 to 1104 style brushless motor. You can see that the propellers connect with the 1102 sort of style, so we have got two screws there. And then we have got a single pin in the middle and the propellers just sit on there really nicely. Now these are 3-leaf propellers and they look to be Walkera's own propellers, and you are given a spare set of these in the package, which is nice, but I guess you'd have to go to Walkera to get some spare propellers if you break any. So for the ESCs again, there's no specifications. I imagine they are about 6 amp, and you are given this 2-cell battery, and this is why I think perhaps they haven't given us the specs in case we start trying to use like a 3-cell battery. But you are given this guy, which is a 7.4 volt 850 milliamp battery, and it's not proprietary, so we have a JST connector here and a balance port, so I can use that with my hobby grade charger. But you are given a balance charger here, so it just charges off the balance port. So I'm not sure if it tells me what the max amp is yet. It's 0.5, so it's going to charge pretty slow. So to charge this at 1C, it's going to want to be 0.85, so I'm going to use my hobby grade charger to charge that. But anyway, this is a ready to fly model. In fact, it's got everything that you need to do FPV other than the goggles. So we've got a 600 TV line CMOS camera up the front there. Now they say it supports both PAL and NTSC, and it outputs PAL and NTSC. Now it can only output one or the other, so it's not very clear on that, but luckily my FPV goggles support both of those systems, so that's fine. Now there are 2 different models released of this. You might be able to see underneath there I have got the TX5836 version, and the manual states that that is the 200 milliwatt version, and the one that ends in 37 is a 25 milliwatt version. So yeah, it's got a built-in VTX there, and you can see that on there. It's a 8-channel VTX, which can be changed using these dip switches here. You can also see that this is the antenna for the VTX, and that comes up here as a sleeve dipole, so no cloverleaf antenna with this, but with that powerful VTX, shouldn't be too much of a problem there. Now, it has this button here, and apparently that switches the power from 200 milliwatts to 100 milliwatts, but I pressed it and kept pressing it down and nothing seemed to happen, so no lights changed on here. You have a little red light up here that sort of is on solid, and that never changed, so no indication to whether the power is changing, which is a bit of a pain. So this one is the ready to fly version, so it's got a built-in Devo receiver, which is going to be DSMX, I would guess, but it's not a satellite receiver, and we'll check that out later in the configurator because it's set up as PPM. So like I say, we'll check that out later. But we have a dual antenna here, and they are both connected, so not fake. However, they are quite long, so I imagine that could get caught in the prop in a crash, but I won't worry about that. So we have got a port on the side here, so it's a USB port, and that is to connect to the configurator. So it's an SP Racing F3 flight controller built into here. Now, interesting, it comes with a very early version of Betaflight, and it's that early that the Betaflight configurator doesn't recognize it, but the Clean Flight configurator does. Now, I'm not sure if there is a bootloader solder pad on there, so I'm not sure I want to risk flashing a newer version, so I'm going to try out this version because it is Betaflight, so it should be okay, so I'll have to check that out. And then we have got a LED on the side there which flashes, and I think there's an LED on this side too. There's a voltage alarm buzzer built into it, which is nice. Now, it's not set up as a lost model alarm, so I will have to set that up a little bit later. And then underneath here we have some other options. So you can plug in a external receiver, so you've got like 3 ports there for your receiver to go in, and a little switch here that switches between S-bus and PPM, so it's in PPM mode at the moment. But if you wanted to use a FreeSky receiver there, you can, but obviously there's no need for me with this because it comes with the Devo 7, which is nice. I've also got a powerful LED up the front here as well, which you cannot control, it's just always on. And again, we have this nice battery strap here as well, which goes around the battery, and it also hides a reset button. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you, but underneath here is a reset button, which I think is just a bind button. I can't imagine it's going to reset all the settings on the flight controller. And that is something that I need to talk about as well, because it didn't come bound out of the box. I plugged in the battery and the buzzer started beeping there, and then I turned on the transmitter and nothing was coming through in the configurator. So I think, as if I'm right, the way that the Devo 7 binds is that it binds from when you switch it on. So if you switch the transmitter on first when you first get this and then plug this in, then I think it binds, and then from then I didn't have an issue. But when in Clean Flight something isn't bound and it's got a buzzer connected, the buzzer goes off constantly, and so I think I had that issue. Anyway, before I talk about the transmitter, let's take a look at the other stuff that you get in the package. So of course, as I mentioned, you get spare props. You get a manual which sort of does tell you how to get going out of the box, but it doesn't tell you any of the Clean Flight setup, or Betaflight should I say, so I'll check that out in the configurator. We're given a, looks like a phono sort of lead here. Let's take a look at that. Like a phono lead, is that going to be like the trainer port or something for this? Transmitter, digital signal wire, so I don't know if I'm going to use that. Maybe you just get given that with the Devo, so yeah, interesting that. I think it's like maybe a lead for the trainer port at the back there. And we had this other lead here as well. Let's check this guy out. It's probably going to be a USB lead. Really nice packaging. Yeah, so USB lead there. So it's a micro for the flight controller. And then you are given like warranty information, but also you're given a CD for the Devo 7, which is quite nice as well, because I've never used the Devo 7 before and it's different than the 7E. So I do have the 7E as well, so let's just move all this out of the way. So you'll notice actually that this is a mode 1 transmitter, and that's because I've converted it. Quite easy to do, you just take the back off there. It's actually hex screws on the back, and you have sort of a clasp there on this side for the throttle, and a little screw that you have to take out of this side and put it in that side, put the clasp over, and then it's in mode 1, and then you can go into the settings here and change the stick mode to mode 1 as well. Really nice transmitter this, really good quality. I've never been disappointed with Walkera transmitters. They are really, you know, hefty and good quality. Now, for the battery, I'm actually not using the stock system. The stock system comes with this, which is very similar to the way that the Hubsan battery works. So it takes 8 AA batteries. So what I've got in here is a Luminaire battery for my Tyrannus. It's a 2500 milliamp battery, I think, yeah. And that's got a JST connector on there. It's a special battery for transmitters, low C rating. and that works no problem. So if I just turn this on here, you can see that now the throttle is registering on that side here, and it's taken me a little bit of time to get used to this transmitter, but you have an enter button there, and then that cycles through system, and you can change sort of like the backlight and stuff like that, and you have an exit button here as well. So in system here you've got sort of like a list of stuff. So you can see there we've got stick mode, and if I press enter on there it's set to mode 1. So and then you can just sort of change that there, and that's really the only thing that I have done with this. Just escape there, and then use this side here. You can cycle through to function and model. So yeah, it has a model memory, this. So what's great about this, if you buy this package, you're not just stuck with these two. This is a fully fledged hobby grade transmitter with various different switches. It's a fantastic transmitter. It can't run the modified firmware, so the Deviation TX firmware, which is a shame because it's a really nice transmitter otherwise. Yep, so the way that this is set up with the 110 is this one here is a 3-position switch, and this one is set up to have your angle, horizon and acro, which is nice. Now it arms on the rudder, which I don't like, so I'll probably set up another switch to have it arm, and another switch as well for the lost model alarm. And that's pretty much it, really. It's a really nice transmitter. Like I say, just make sure that you bind it up when you get it. So the next thing to do is to go into the CleanFlight configurator and see what's up there. So here we are in the CleanFlight configurator. I just want to show you the stock settings as well as some of the settings that I have changed. So I've got the quadcopter plugged into the computer via the included USB cable. I've also got the quadcopter's battery plugged in as well, and that is because the receiver doesn't power up if the battery isn't plugged in, so I would recommend you take the props off if you are wanting to do this. So the first thing that you can see here is that the VBAT is connected, so that is the voltage of the battery, 7.8 volts. So it looks like that buzzer that's installed is being used as a voltage telemetry buzzer as well, which is nice. So let's go into the ports tab, and nothing is selected here, and that is because it's a PPM receiver, so the serial is not needed. So let's go into the configuration here, and it's set up as Quad X, which is standard. You can see that the board orientation is set to 180 degrees, so that's important to note if you are wanting to flash it with updated firmware. So over here, and I've got the motor stop turned off. Now this was turned on out of the box, and that means that when you arm the quadcopter, the motors don't spool up, so I have turned that off. And the reason for that is I like to have full control of the quadcopter at 0 throttle, and if you turn that on when you drop the throttle, then the props will completely stop and you won't have any control. Now, interestingly, One Shot 125 is turned off. I'm not going to mess with that because that is the stock setting, but I can probably turn that on. Now, this was also turned off, disarm the motors regardless of the throttle value, and that is because out of the box it's set up to arm on the rudder, but I'd turn that on because I have changed it to arm on a switch, and I'll show you that a bit later. Now, if we check out the minimum throttle, it seems a bit high at 1150. However, these are probably high kV motors, so that value is probably okay, so I will have to check that out in the flight. And we have the maximum throttle here set to 1900. Now, as I haven't used the Devo 7 before, that might be correct, so I'll check that out in the receiver tab. And then we have the minimum command set at 1000, so everything down here is stock. After that, the VBAT is turned on. So let's go into the failsafe here and see if I can see any settings. Now it just seems to hang here, and I've had this with CleanFlight a couple of times before. Now I just wonder if this version of Betaflight is incompatible with this configurator, because it doesn't let me view the failsafe at all, which is a shame. So I'm going to need to test that separately, and so I'm going to have to move on from there. In fact, I think it's crash, so let's disconnect from there. I'll get a beep probably from the quadcopter, maybe not. Let's reconnect and let's go into the PIDs there. So this is using the multi rewrite. I have no idea if it's been tuned or if these are stock values, so I'm just going to try them there, and I'm going to leave these roll rates and yaw rates and pitch rates the same. So let's go into the receiver here, and you can see if I move the throttle there that it is working there on AETR, and if I do full throttle, you go 1905, so actually that figure of 1900 is correct. I could probably move up a little bit to 1905, just get a little bit of extra power there. It's not going to be much. And then all this is stock here. And then if I scroll down here, you can see there that the receiver is in PPM mode there. So let's go over to the modes tab. Now, this was set up out of the box, so angle, horizon, and acro, and that is on that 3-position switch there, so that's fine. Now, I have added a auxiliary 3 to arm it. I've also added a auxiliary 2 for a loss model alarm as well, so I should be able to move that, and you can hear that too. So I haven't calibrated the ESCs here because I expect that to be done out of the box. Now let's just go into the CLI and check the version. So it says SP Racing F3 Betaflight version 0.33. The date September 12, 2016. Is that correct? I don't know. It seems like a very low version number to be just September last year. There you go. It won't work with the Betaflight configurator, and I don't know why it won't let me go into the failsafe. That is a shame, but it just says waiting for data, so there you go. Anyways, let's go and take this thing for a fly and see how I get on. So I have tested the failsafe, and it does work, but sadly it only works when motor stop is turned on. So when you turn the transmitter off and all the motors are going, if motor stop is turned off, the throttle does reduce to 0, but the propellers continue to spin, and I guess that's because the failsafe is not set up to move any of the switches. So I set my arming up on a switch there, and when the TX turns off, the arming switch stays in the same position. Now I've tried a couple of things. There is a failsafe in the transmitter itself that allows you to set a position for the switches. That sadly doesn't work. So then I thought, well, you could technically go into clean flight or Betaflight and set the failsafe up there, but you saw that it was hanging in the video. I could never get that to work. I went on another computer to try and sort that out, and that didn't work. So I thought, well, maybe I can flash the firmware again, and I took all this apart to see if I could spot a bootloader pad in case it bricks whilst I'm upgrading the firmware, and that wasn't there either. I'm sure there is one, it's just that it's not noted on the board at all, so I didn't want to risk flashing Betaflight with a latest version and it potentially bricking this. So I've decided I'm going to fly it anyways with motor stop turned off, and that is just because I'm so used to flying with the throttle at 0 that I'm going to take the risk. Of course, if it crashed, the motors would continue to spin and it probably burn out a motor or an ESC. Hopefully that won't happen. I guess this guy is designed to just fly out of the box and not mess with any of the settings. So let's go and take it for a fly. Stick it on the ground here, and then I've got my arming switch, and I'm in angle mode there, and just look at that. That is so smooth. Now already I can see that the rates are really dialed down, so I have to see how it performs in acro mode. I have to say, so far that looks pretty impressive. Let's check out the punch. Wow, the punch is pretty incredible. I did not expect that from a 2S, but I guess it's a really lightweight setup. Okay, let's see if I can go into acro mode there, see what the rates are like in there. So yeah, they are a little bit docile, but I guess this one's designed for a beginner. I would say if you're looking at this as a first quadcopter, definitely get a brushed micro first. It's going to fly very similar to this, except this one's got more power. Oh, but it's flying so nice. There doesn't seem to be any issues with the tune. Plenty of punch, can't believe that. Just from a 2S, but there you go. Nice backflip there. See that LED well in this gloomy weather. Okay, I'm going to bring it in for a landing. And let's see how it performs FPV. So this is the DVR footage taken from my Fat Shark Dominator HT3s. I'm also using the Fat Shark Diversity receiver module along with a on-way antenna and a Menace RC patch antenna. Now, out of the box, the FPV camera was completely out of focus, so I had to undo the 2 screws at the bottom and the 1 screw at the top to remove the cowling. You then have the 2 screws at the side to adjust the camera angle. They had to come out, and then the camera itself has 2 screws on the back of it as well to remove the housing. And then the camera's lens is glued in, so it was glued in out of focus. So I took a pair of pliers and very carefully twisted the lens until the glue broke. And then I refocused the camera, and this is as good as it would focus. So sadly, the FPV camera isn't too great, and you can see we have some graining coming through from the motors as well. However, this quadcopter completely redeemed itself with how it flew. The power was absolutely crazy for a 2-cell. I couldn't believe it. And the tune was brilliant as well. It was so smooth. There's no wobbles on the rolls at all, or the flips as well. So really good there. And the best thing about this, and I know you will all be asking this, is can it carry a Mobius Mini as I do a 4-point roller? And guess what? It already is carrying a Mobius Mini. Now don't worry, I'll show you how I attached it later, but yeah, this is a big deal breaker for me. It carries a Mobius Mini, and not only that, it carries it really well. There's no vibrations whatsoever coming through the motors, and that is something that you can tell while flying it as well. It's just completely smooth power delivery. There's no wobbles coming through the camera. There's no jello whatsoever. So this quadcopter is actually perfect for carrying a Mobius Mini. Now I did fly it with the Mobius and without, and I literally couldn't tell the difference. Now the Mobius weighs, I think it's about 26 grams or so, which you'd think for a quadcopter this size would be significant, but it actually wasn't. It handled it no problem, and actually I couldn't tell the difference in power between having the Mobius on the quadcopter and not having it. So there you go, and for me this quadcopter has definitely redeemed itself when it comes to the fail-safe issue and the poor FPV camera. I think if you were buying this and you got the FPV camera completely out of focus and you didn't really know how to take it apart, you know, this is meant to be an RTF, then that will disappoint you. But I'm used to having to take stuff apart and correct it, you know. These things are pretty cheap for what you get, and someone's there building these things, you know, and there is always quality control issues, not usually with Walkera, I have to say, and maybe yours won't have this issue, but mine definitely did, and this is the best that the camera will go in focus as well. So not the best FPV camera, but the fact that it can carry a Mobius Mini for me is just absolutely fantastic. And look at that power as well. So much power from a 2S. I dare to think what it would do with a 3-cell, and I think a lot of people are going to be buying these propellers as well for their own custom builds when they come out. At the moment I can't see anywhere selling the propellers, but just look how smooth this controller is. Absolutely fantastic. So I'll put a link in the description for this one. It was sent in by GearBest very kindly. And yes, I'm really impressed with how it flies. Of course, you can tinker with it more. You can turn on one shot 125 if you like, and you could mess with the Betaflight tune. And if you dare to upgrade the firmware, I dare say that you could get into the Betaflight failsafe and correct that issue with the arming as well. And one thing that was really great about this quadcopter as well is that the voltage buzzer was completely accurate, and I was able to fly it all the way up until the buzzer going off completely, and there was enough time to land it as well, so that was really good. And you should hear the beeper go off in a moment. So I was getting a 5-minute flight time with the Mobius attached, amazing, and probably a 7-minute flight time, something like that, depending on how you fly without the Mobius attached. So there you go, you can hear the buzzer going off there, and it goes off constant, and it just gives me enough time to land and say, there you go, that is my review of the Rodeo 110 from gearbest.com. It completely redeemed itself. I really like it. So let's come in for a landing, and I will show you how I attach the Mobius Mini to it. So in order to get the Mobius Mini to fit on the top of here and poke out the front without anything in view, you're going to have to remove a couple of things from the front. So out of the box, the quadcopter comes with this cowling fitted to it. I guess it's to protect the camera, so you know, your camera is going to be more exposed to getting damaged, I guess, doing this. But if you leave that on, there's no way that you can fit a camera on top of there because it gets in the way. So we have 2 screws underneath here. You need to take a Phillips screwdriver and undo those 2. And then this part here sits on top of here. I think it goes that way, like that. And then you have a screw in the top of here. And again, that sits in these 2 holes here, and you have to take that out too, and the way that you do that is you have to take this entire top plate off. So we have 2 screws there, 2 there, and 2 there, and then this top plate completely removes. It won't remove this one because there's another screw in the back there, so you don't need to worry about the antenna housing. And then this will just pull straight out because it's only held in by the 2 screws on the top there. So then you can put this top plate back on, and you can see there that the camera no longer protrudes right up the top there. So then what I did was I took the battery and just put a couple of foam sticky pads on there, just so that you can have the camera at a slight angle, and I'll explain that in a bit. So that then fits over the top there, and then we have the Mobius Mini, and that sits on there like so. It's a brilliant size for it, actually. And then this strap can come through here and hold the back of the Mobius in like that, and then you are going to need a further strap. So I borrowed this one from a run cam, and again that is going to go around the front of the camera, so just something like that, and then pull that really tight, and the camera then sits on there really nicely. I need to cut a couple of these off, otherwise they'll get caught in the props eventually. And you'll notice that I have the camera forward here, and that is because I actually had it tilted up slightly to match the Mobius, but the Mobius field of view is 110 degrees, whereas this one is about 120. So I found that if you even have this camera completely straight and put the Mobius on straight, then you get a lot of the grounding shot rather than the horizon, because this one's still capturing part of the horizon, but this one with the narrower field of view, it's not capturing it at all. So actually I'm going to buy the Mobius that has the 135 degree wide angle lens, because I think it'll be a little bit better. But there you go, that is how I have connected the Mobius Mini to the Rodeo 110. It looks smart and it performs fantastically. So there you go, that is my review of the Rodeo 110. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.